back to the end of the world. So as you know, World War III has started. The United States and Israel have started to attack Iran. And we are now in the 4th day of this war. And we can expect this war to last for many weeks, possibly also for many years. But I promise you that after this war is done, the world will never be the same again. So what we will do these next few weeks is use game theory and understand and analyze the geopolitical situation. And so I'm going to teach you the ideas, the theories, the techniques to understand the world around you and make predictions. And we can know if our analysis is correct because all this is happening in real time, and so we can test it against reality. All right, so let's go over some basic facts about what's happened so far. So in the early morning of Saturday in Tehran, the Israelis and Americans launched a decapitation strike against the Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of Iran. Now, there are arguments and disputes about as to what happened. The Americans and Israelis said that they had real intelligence about where the leader was, and so they sent airplanes to just bomb the crap out of the place. They also had a spy who was able to record the body of the dead Ayatollah. And then this was announced. At first,
my understanding is, I don't know if these are rumors, my understanding is he was 86 with some type of prostate cancer or something like that. He only had about a year to live. Obviously, we're in the fog of war, but he was 86. So what is that? Is that the thing? I know they killed, I guess, allegedly other leaders over there, but an 86-year-old, really?
The Iranians denied this, and the Iranians insisted he was still alive. But eventually, state media admitted that he did die in the airstrike. But then what they also said is that the Ayatollah, he's 86 years old, and he chose to die. He could have gone to Moscow, but instead he chose to stay in Tehran and die for his people.
I haven't watched this yet. I've only seen clips going viral. This is Predictive History, one of the best channels out there right now, and that makes more sense to me. That makes more sense. These aren't stupid people. I know they're sand people, they're tunnel people, they're underground people, they're survival IQ people. They're not stupid people, especially when it comes to war and little shenanigans like that. So what I'm saying is their supreme leader, you don't think he knew that they were going to target him if they really did kill him? And like he said, he could have went to Russia or wherever. That doesn't even add up. Right after they got Maduro from Venezuela, I mean, come on, that doesn't add up that he's just out in the open in a building knowing that, you know, they all have underground cities basically over there, knowing that they could get nuked, they could get bombed at any moment. They've got a whole underground network where they've got the drones and the missiles. He goes into that later. I don't know if we'll get to it or not, but why would he be above ground? Why would they all be meeting together?
But not only that, but he died along many of his relatives. He died along with his daughter, his son-in-law, his grandchildren. So many of the family died in this assault. Also, there's been reporting that he had prostate cancer. Okay, so he was going to die fairly soon as well. So what you need to understand first about the war is that even though the Americans and the Israelis claim great success in decapitating the leadership of the Iranians, from the Iranian perspective, this is a martyrdom, okay? And so the religion of the Iranians is called Shia Muslim. And this is different from Sunni Muslim. So Sunnis are the majority. They're about 9% of all Muslims in the world. The Shia have always been the minority. And as such, they've always been persecuted. So in the Shia faith, the core value, the force that binds everyone together and gives them purpose and meaning in life, that galvanizes them into action, is the idea of martyrdom, which forces jihad. You sacrifice yourself for your religion, sacrifice yourself for the common good. So think of the death of Khamenei as a sacrifice, a self-sacrifice, in order to motivate the Iranians in this war, okay? So that's the first thing you need to understand. That for the Iranians, this is not a geopolitical war. This is not an economic war. This is not a war of resistance. This is a jihad, okay? It's a war against the great Satan to avenge their leader. They will fight to the death, all right? That's number one. Number two is this. Also that morning, when the Ayatollah was killed, they really struck a school in the south of Tehran, killing about 150 school children. These are girls in primary school.
Wait.
And again,
this is old. But to my knowledge, it's confirmed. Yesterday, even CNN confirmed it was America, is what, or the New York Times might have been the original source.
There's a lot of debate and argument as to what happened. This really said that, first of all, the school was next to a military base. We were targeting the military base. And second of all, it wasn't us which struck the school. It was a air defense missile that went off course. Okay? And the Iranians insisted no. The Israelis purposefully attacked the school to kill the school children. And then you're like, why would the Israelis do that? But then these few years.
Let me take a look real quick at this here.
Weeks since this war with Iran has been underway, the deadliest incident of civilian casualties was a strike that happened on an elementary school in southern Iran that killed scores of children. Tonight, a CNN analysis of that attack reveals evidence suggesting that the United States military was likely responsible for it. What you're about to see is disturbing. I want to warn you. The United States says it's still under investigation, but this was the scene at the school just after the strikes 1 week ago, nearly. CNN has not independently confirmed the death toll, but Iranian health officials and state media believe that at least 168 children and 14 teachers were killed. Our analysis, which is based on satellite imagery, geolocated videos, and the assessment of munitions experts, suggests that this school was hit around the same time that an attack that American forces had launched on a neighboring Iranian naval base. This new satellite image shows several Revolutionary Guard buildings near the all-girls school. You can see how close they are. In red, you can see the craters at the center of the structures, including the school, and what experts say look like precision strikes. A wall, marked by that dotted line there, is all that separates the school and this base. When asked about the strike this week multiple times during...
When you look at that map, I mean, these missiles are pretty accurate with all the GPS tracking AI. I mean, who knows? Allegedly. I'm not even alleging. I'm just saying possibly Anthropic's Claude or any one of them could have been, all these AIs could have been involved in this. And, you know, when you have AI, there's like AI slop. And I'm using a lot of AI now. It's getting so good. The slop is like 10% when you're using the right tools and the right level of it, not the free versions. I'm only getting about 10% where it's like wrong and it's barely wrong. But that's what could happen here. You track buildings with whatever AI, the AI scans it. Who has to, you're basically turning war into AI controlled. I don't know what happened. It could have been the same thing that happened to, I can't believe we're still talking about, I'm still bringing up the Kilmar Garcia, Abrego Garcia, but that's what happened with him, in my opinion. I took the allegedly off of it. They're not giving any details, so I'll take the allegedly off of it, that he got scraped up in some type of AI database that didn't realize he shouldn't have been deported. And what happens when you're targeting buildings? I don't know. Oops. The AI, and you know how you use AI and you say, AI, wait a second, that was a school building. And the AI would double check and say, yep, you're right. It was a school building. My bad. Oopsie.
When asked about the strike this week multiple times during multiple different press briefings, this is what Trump administration officials have told reporters.
Did the United States...
This is a fair analysis, and it's the first thing I thought of, too, when I pulled up CNN. we're seeing all kinds of propaganda from America within America. It's just insane. But CNN now is not the same CNN as it was in the past, though. I mean, Trump has much more influence over CNN now than he ever has. It's not fully, he doesn't have full influence over it with Larry Ellison and such, but I think this is legit. And you know how you know it's legit is that the US pulling the same thing the Israelis do is say we're looking into it, we're investigating it. That means we know what it is. If they knew it wasn't them, they wouldn't even be investigating it. It would be done. So I actually tend to believe, I don't know death toll or anything, but I think something there happened. Something happened that the U.S. government does not want to admit. What that is, I'm not entirely sure.
It's airstrike at girls' elementary school and kill 175 people.
Not that we know of, Sean, and the Department of War is investigating this matter, and I would...
Not that we know of. That's legal speak. Not that we know of.
Just tell you very strongly, the United States of America does not target civilians, unlike the rogue Iranian regime that targets civilians, that kills children, that has killed thousands of their own people in the past several weeks, and uses propaganda quite effectively. And unfortunately, many people in this room have fallen for that propaganda.
Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that.
The answer is we didn't do it. If he knew at this point they didn't do it, they wouldn't be we're investigating. They'd be like, we didn't do it. Israel didn't do it.
We of course never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that.
We've gotten to a place where we don't care. Nobody cares. And I've actually had discussions with my wife on this, and we talk about this kind of stuff, just dinner table, kitchen table talk. And she says, well, she asked me because she knows I'm following this stuff, and she's actually starting to respect my opinion on it a little bit, believe it or not, because I'm spending a lot of time on it. And we're looking at the polls, and we're looking at people saying, well, the American public overall doesn't support this. Well, that's not true at all. It's the same thing as I talk about with universal health care. The left would say, with universal health care, 70% of the public prefers to have like a Medicare for all type 1 program that's government funded. Well, no, they don't. That's a poll. So you can't take a polling and say that's what the country cares about. How would I define if a country cares? Trump would be impeached. Or we would have pressure towards Congress to impeach him and remove him from office. If we really cared. We don't care about Epstein. We don't care about none of that. And when I almost sounded Jamaican there first. I almost sound like Patois for a second. I don't do a Jamaican accent, even though my parents are Jamaican. But we don't care about that. How do you determine? I don't want to talk about polling. Where is the energy? Is anyone talking about it? Anyone, even the left. The left isn't even talking about, or the Democratic left isn't talking about impeaching Trump. Not in any serious manner. Now, it will come up if the midterms swap, but that's just more politics. Now would be the legit to say, wait a second, this is pretty serious. There is no push from the Senate or anything like that. Why? Because the people don't care. Number one, with Republicans, basically, they've got 90, 80% of them just on lock. Donald Trump has been the greatest neocon of all time. He started with he kind of galvanized the energy of the anti-war, basically working class, white male, but it wasn't just white male, but the core white male, disaffected voter that voted for Obama in 2008 and even maybe again in 2012 and went through all the bailouts and everything and said, F this. He was the face, the mascot of that energy against the GOP, against Jeb Bush, against the Iraq War, against Marco Rubio. And now we see this gradual turn to where Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, not only that, he's getting memed as if he's something to be cheered about. Greatest neocon of all time, he has subdued the public. He has made the public softer. We don't care. The American public does not care if we launched weapons with our directly, not even through Israel anymore, directly through our tax dollars, bombed and killed potentially 170 or so little girls. Americans do not care at all. That's how depraved our society has become. I mean, we should be doing, and he didn't even get approval for war. They legally can't call it war. They can call it the Department of War, but they legally can't call, or they want to illegally avoid calling this war. It's whatever, special military operations or whatever the hell bullshit they want to call it. Just like when Russia invaded Ukraine, it's a special military operation. It's war. What are we doing? America doesn't even care enough to force them to follow the Constitution. Very serious stuff. That was the core issue where I had my disagreement with the Groypers and Nick on, and not going to counter signal the leader, Nick, of the Groyper movement. But I will respectfully, that's where my stance, that's the problem I had. It is war, and it should be done with approval. Because if you don't do it for Venezuela, then you don't have to do it here. Because he could have done the same thing here, bombed the 86-year-old with prostate cancer, and then fled. And if they didn't keep bombing, it's not war. America doesn't care. So we have to look in the mirror and we have to face that. We have to face that we have an apathetic, ignorant populace that probably cares more about trans in women's bathrooms than this. If you're just joining, we're doing a react to Predictive History. This dude's just outlaying it, but we went on a side mission. You know, you could call the channel the side mission. The side mission here was his react was 4 days ago. We found out gradually over the last couple of days that it looks like it was us. Let's use we. We bombed a school and potentially unlived about 168 or so little girls.
Now, the internet blackout in Iran has made it very difficult for our teams to examine weapons fragments that are left at the scene for further evidence of responsibility. Reuters reports, though, that U.S. military investigators also believe it is likely U.S. forces were behind that strike.
Yeah, I think that's real. I don't think there's what's the motivation for lying there? And then what's the motivation for Trump's administration not to strongly rebuke it? So you have to kind of put the pieces together. Credibility of that report of it being the U.S., very high. The only thing, if it weren't the U.S., believe it or not, I'm not saying this, but if it weren't the U.S., it would be Israel and the U.S. covering for Israel is the only other thing that would make sense to me.
Well, we've seen what they've done in Gaza, in Palestine, to the Palestinians. And it's pretty consistent what the Israelis have been doing. All right? So this action against the Israelis, it's meant to show to themselves and the world that we are now all in. Okay? We've made the sacrifice. We are now committed to this war, to winning this war at all costs. And this action has also provoked the Iranian people to resist with their full might. Okay?
Whoa. He's got another theory. I love how casual he is with his theories. Whoa. We're 5 minutes in. This is crazy. His theory is this shit was like a gang hit. His theory is like you say, I want to be a part of the gang. Go prove to me that you want to be a part of the gang. Go find that innocent civilian and do something bad to them. That's what he just said, if I'm not mistaken. Bring it back.
The Israelis, it's meant to show to themselves and the world that we are.
Well, let's bring it back. And this is important for his theory because if he's saying we're in World War III, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're exaggerating," just like when we bombed Fordow, I think it was Fordow or whatever, the nuclear spot in Iran months ago. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're doomed. Your dooms or you're nihilistic, and it's not going to be World War III." Then you fast forward, and everyone, including myself, said they're just pausing because they're out of ammunition. It's kind of like they're boxing and then they're both tired, so they want to take a break and then they're going to fight again. And now we're fighting, and now it's spiraling out of control. And then we say, well, I said it was World War III, and doesn't it look like World War III? You have to say stuff like this as potential evidence to say this is possible. So you can say I'm being crazy, or I'm just a guy in the basement and rattling off stuff, but it is possible that this is a conscious hit on innocent civilians from the US, escalating things as a message to say we're all in. We're in the game. This is for real right now. Maybe that's what the hit on Ayatollah Khomeini was.
And then you're like, why would the Israelis do that? But then these few years, well, we've seen what they've done in Gaza, in Palestine to the Palestinians. And it's pretty consistent what the Israelis have been doing. All right? So this action against the Israelis, it's meant to show to themselves and the world that we are now all in. Okay? We've made the sacrifice. We are now
So he's coming from the angle that Israel did it. But I'm going to take it to, well, if we know the U.S. did it, maybe that's a legitimate take as well. Those takes are more legitimate than saying we didn't do it at this point.
committed to this war, to winning this war at all costs. And this action has also provoked the Iranian people to resist with their full might, okay? So I want you to keep this in mind. And again, we don't have complete evidence that it's the Israelis who did this, but given past actions from the Israelis, this is fairly consistent with what they've done. Okay? So we can assume that this is something the Israelis did. Why they did this, what the purpose is something we will discuss as we move on. Okay? It's very complicated. Next, I want to show you this. This is Dubai.
Before we move on, in the chat, I'm seeing that we are having a discussion of MAGA and not MAGA. I agree with Arctic Adjuster. Arctic Adjuster says, stop defending your pedo draft dodgy messiah. You people have shit for brains. And it's time we have to have that discussion. I'm not going to go too much on a tangent now, but I am wearing the major MAGA sweater. Well, number one, I paid money for this to make this. So it is still a good sweater, so I'm going to wear it, number one. I'm not giving it to Goodwill where you see some bum on the street wearing the major MAGA sweater. Number two, it's like a retro jersey now. It's kind of like a throwback Knicks uniform. It's fun now. It's like a throwback. You see the throwback, the old school Green Bay uniforms, and you're like, oh yeah, that's old throwback. I don't rock with MAGA. Let's just make sure that's clear. It's America first now. But I got the throwback on. So I got the new gear clashing with the old gear. So I put it on, like, it's nostalgic. Remember the times? Remember the good days? Them's is over. But I agree with Arctic Adjuster, man. We just gotta take the bucket of cold water, and it's okay, man. We don't have to beat ourselves up for supporting MAGA. It was good times, especially if you were in it for the right reasons. Why would you look back at that as bad? And why would you hesitate to leave now? It was the Tea Party. When you look back at the Tea Party, that was bullshit. But it created MAGA. You look back at MAGA now, that was obviously bullshit. But MAGA will create something else. Out of it will rise the ashes. Out of the ashes will rise something bigger, better, and greater. There's no reason to be doom-pilled about it. Let's get back to the professor.
And Dubai is considered one of the wealthiest, safest cities in the world. There are thousands, tens of thousands of Westerners who move to Dubai because it's clean, you don't pay any taxes, you make a lot of money, and there are great restaurants. And this is really the economic model of Dubai. If
I were a billionaire, I'm not going to lie, I would have some type of spot in Dubai, without question.
The GCC countries, okay, the Gulf coastal countries, and for the longest time, Dubai had a really good deal because they were under the protection of the American military, so they didn't have to pay for defense. And then they were in the Middle East, which is the oil producing center of the world. And so they focus on aviation, they focus on logistics, they focus on finance, on tourism. They become extremely wealthy, right? I'm not sure if you've taken Emirates, one of the best airlines in the world. So their airport, Dubai Airport, is the busiest in the world. And Dubai, for the longest time, was flourishing under American protection. And Dubai said to the world, listen, we're like Switzerland. We're neutral. We don't want any involvement in any wars. We're here just to take care of our citizens, to make sure everyone has a good time, to make money. And then right after the war started, the Iranians attacked the GCC, okay? Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, they attacked these places. And these places were like, what's going on? We're neutral, man. We're not involved in this war. And the airport was shut down in Dubai. At one point, the rich people in Dubai were willing to pay about $250,000 US just to get on a plane and get out of there. Okay? So the reality is this. For the longest time, Dubai had a reputation for being safe, and that's why people moved their money there. Guess what, guys? After what the Iranians did, it's dead. Dubai as a city, in the long term, it is dead. Because you're a wealthy Westerner, you're not gonna move to a place where it could be attacked anytime by the Iranians. You might move to Singapore, you might move to Hong Kong, Japan, South America, but you're not moving to Dubai, okay? So the big question for us is, why did the Iranians do this? It was the Israelis and Americans who attacked you. Why go after the GCC? All right? And not only that, but they're escalating the attacks against the GCC. So this is something that we will look at.
We already know the answer to this, many of you watching the channel, but I don't know, the way he breaks it down is something so satisfying about hearing him break it down like this. And I don't even know what he's going to say here. But obviously, they can't reach the U.S. other than having lunatics like in Texas did something outside a nightclub. Not directly, probably, but they can't reach the U.S. with bombs, missiles, drones at this point. So they can put pressure on the people who are supposed to be friends or even neutral to the U.S. We can reach you guys, and I know that you guys will reach the U.S. Obviously, that's what the pressure is.
Very closely today. Well, the short answer is because these places, even though they
And let me correct that. They can affect the U.S. from a cyber attack standpoint, which we're escalating right now. That's obviously something that could be coming.
pretend
And he talks about that.
to be neutral, they house the American military. They allow the Israelis and the Americans to use their airspace to attack Iran from. All right? So this is Bahrain. Now, Bahrain is interesting, okay? Because I want you guys to remember this. But Bahrain will probably be one of the major centers of this conflict. Because, first of all, this is the American Fifth Fleet. All right? This is their naval base in the Middle East. And as you can see, the Iranians are attacking it with missiles. And it's being blown up. Bahrain is interesting because it has about 50% or even more, okay, Shia, which is the religion of the Iranians. But the people in charge are the Sunnis. And so what makes this strike really important from our perspective is, first of all, not only are the Iranians attacking U.S. military assets, not only are they destroying the economies of the GCC, but they're also trying to ignite a religious war, right? Because you're Shia, you're loyal to the Ayatollah. And if he's dead, then you must, as a religious obligation, now commit jihad against your enemies. And it's no different in other religions where, listen, if you want to kill the Pope, the Catholics would be really angry at you and they would want to kill you, right? So now you have the Shia who will probably eventually arise, creating a revolution in Bahrain, okay? So I think Bahrain will be the first to fall. Dubai will probably go bankrupt, okay? But in the long term, we can expect the entire GCC area.
Well, what we've seen now is just a threat, a touch. They haven't gone that far, Iran. But that's what the message is. If you keep going, we're going to do this to them.
Including Saudi Arabia, to eventually collapse, okay? And so this is something we'll use game theory to understand. All right, let's continue. So we will know how this war develops just based on geography, okay? So this is a map. And this map, even if you don't really know the war, even if you don't know the participants, even if you don't know the weaponry, this map will tell you exactly how this war will progress. All right, so some certain things to keep in mind about this map. This is what we call this area, okay, really small, it's 33 kilometers wide, okay? People can swim across it. It's really, really narrow, okay? This small area, guys, it's called the Strait of Hormuz.
So before we move on to the Strait of Hormuz, which is utmost seriousness with how important it is, just an update on Dubai. The most recent attack related to Dubai actually happened today. Reuters reported that the Emirates briefly suspended flights. Dubai authorities described a minor incident caused by falling debris after an interception. So it looks like it wasn't a direct attack. Flights later resumed. But it does matter, but it's not safe. It's not like, for whatever reason, you thought Dubai is where the rich people go, nobody's going to mess with them. You could get messed up with the interception at this point of drones and missiles. And what's going to be the end of this? It's not going to be easy for America to go in on the ground and change the government over in Iran, or even through the spies or whatever else. They need to bring the show homeland back. But it's not going to be easy. So how long is this going to go? Even though Iran doesn't have the full technology, they have better manufacturing. The drones, missiles are cheaper. The interceptors are way more expensive. It takes longer to build them. We're going to run out of interceptors. What happens when we run out of interceptors? It's much harder to intercept a missile than it is to just shoot a missile. The technology, the percentage of impact. So Dubai's not safe. So it sounds like Dubai was at least indirectly affected by the strike wave, even if officials did not describe it as a clean, direct hit on the city. So the previous major strike that he was talking about was the overnight wave from February 28th into March 1st. Reuters and AP reported damage in Dubai around the Palm, Burj Al Arab, and the airport area, with injuries from shrapnel and debris after interceptions. Who's intercepting those? If you mean before, so it's just talking about before the war. I was asking, like, when was the last time Dubai was attacked? The last major precedent was January 2022. I didn't remember that. Houthis did? The Houthis attack on the UAE and described those attacks as centered on Abu Dhabi and US used base, while Dubai mainly felt the security shock and tourism jitters. So that wasn't a direct attack on Dubai. I don't know if Dubai's ever been attacked directly in recent history. I asked to do a research to see if Dubai has gotten mad or the UAE has gotten mad in America. There is documented frustration with Washington. Reuters reported on January 26 that the UAE said its airspace, territory, and territorial waters could not be used for hostile military actions. They tried to basically remind America, don't use us for anything, we're neutral. AP then reported that officials from 2 Gulf countries said they were not given advance notice of the February 28 U.S.-Israeli strike. I did not know that. So they didn't even know. And Washington ignored their warnings about regional fallout because they knew we're right by Iran. Iran's going to go to us. They can't touch you. They're going to touch Israel, but it's more expensive for them to touch Israel to get through the Iron Dome, but they are getting through. But they described Gulf frustration and even anger that U.S. defenses seem more focused on Israel and U.S. troops than protecting Gulf states. So there does seem to be some tension between the UAE, Dubai, which is basically just Dubai, and the U.S. and Israel. That's the whole purpose of striking them. They said that Iran apologized to neighboring Gulf states and said attacks on neighboring states would be suspended unless strikes on Iran originated from their territory. And that was after the March 1st attack, because the UAE obviously had beef with Iran. Reuters reports that the UAE re-engaged Tehran in 2019, upgraded diplomatic ties in 2023, and in April 2024, both sides held their first joint economic commission in 10 years. Reuters also said Dubai has long been one of Iran's main commercial gateways, and in Iran's fiscal year ending March 2024, Iran imported about $21 billion in goods from the UAE and exported $6.6 billion to it. So their relationships were getting better, and now you can see it's getting strained, but they kind of have no choice.
All right? And it's important because it's really the center of the world. This one area is the nexus, the pivot of the world. Let me explain why. First of all, from the GCC, you have 20% of all the world's oil flowing through this narrow strait. Where does it go, guys? It goes to Asia, India, Pakistan, South Korea, China, Japan. India depends on 60% of its oil from this area. China depends on 40%. Japan, 75%. Prime Minister Takaichi of Japan has said that, listen, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, we will run out of oil in about 8-9 months. The entire Japanese economy would collapse in 8-9 months if the Strait of Hormuz were to close. And guess what? The Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? So we can expect that the entire global economy.
Looking into it, you might have heard as well, it's not that simple. I think Iran has said we haven't closed anything. But it's almost like semantics, because the threat is that Iran or Houthis or whoever they fund indirectly could blow up or attack these ships, and they obviously don't want to go through. The block is hot. So Iran doesn't have to say we shut down this. Iran's like, don't look at us, because China went to Iran and said, what's going on? And Iran said, don't look at us. We didn't shut it down. Go look at the Americans. They're the ones starting the war, and the ships just don't, they know that they could get popped at any moment. So we didn't do anything.
Economy will suffer greatly over the next few months. All right, so that's point number one. Point number two is,
and really it's the insurance is what it is. It's just like do you want to drive your car if you can't get it insured, because if something happens, it's gone, and it's a very expensive car, not some cheap car. They're transporting goods and oil. So the goods and oils, the ship gets attacked, it goes under the sea, how many millions, billions, or whatever to repair the ship, to replace the ship, to replace the goods. Who's paying for that?
okay, so the GCC sends oil across the Strait of Hormuz, and what do they get back in return? Food, guys. All right, so people don't appreciate the GCC, but it is really the linchpin of the American empire. Because what is the American empire? The American empire is the petrodollar. All right? The idea of the petrodollar is this. The US dollar is worth nothing.
Yep.
It's only valuable if people want it. But the GCC says that if you want oil from us, you have to pay us in US dollars. Okay? Then that is the basis of the value of the US dollar. So, if the GCC collapses, the American economy and the American empire both collapse at the same time. The problem, though, is that GCC is an artificial construct of empire. It does not exist naturally. Why? Because there's no food, there's no oil, no water. Okay, guys? No food, no water. So these cities are able to grow in the millions because of all these petrodollars flowing in. If you close off the Strait of Hormuz, there's no food coming in, right? They're all going to starve. How much food does the GCC get from overseas? 80%. 80% of all the food it consumes comes from overseas, that it imports. It doesn't grow by itself, it imports. All right? So the Silver Moose is really key. And again, the Iranians will close it in order to strangle the global economy and therefore bankrupt the American empire. All right?
See, this is the thing, man. When you start, that's why when I'm in public, I'm on peace. I don't need fighting to fight with people. As you can see, I am black, but I don't relate to the blacks. But my point is, you have to, if you're a black, and I do believe in race realism, you have to fight that urge for survival instinct. I have fully transformed into basically civilization IQ. I mean, when you get into a fight, it's all survival, whatever. But once you get into a fight, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't have control over it. You get into a fight, some dude knows karate, some dude knows how to literally put you to sleep. It could be some UFC fighter, it could be some boxer. You're not even equipped to fight this dude. They could have a knife, they could have a gun. They could have got divorced the day before and said, I don't even want to be here on this world anymore. I mean, when you get older, you understand that. When you're young, I'm hoping to help my kids now. So when they get to 18, because I know how it is when you're a kid and you're 18, you just feel like you are invincible. You're like playing Mario Brothers with the star. No, you're not. We get into this conflict here. They don't have to ask us for permission for it through Congress. What the hell is the point of Congress then? And now we're into something where I don't know, are there sleeper cells here? This is a jihad to them. This is not a jihad to me. So why am I getting into a conflict with somebody I never had beef with in the first place? I might call you jokes. I might joke about your women really being hoes underneath all the garb and stuff you put on. They're the biggest freaks on the planet. As you can see, when they get liberated, they go straight to OnlyFans type stuff. They start showing their cleavage and all that. I mean, that's just the human instinct. That's what women have to bring to the world in part. So I can make jokes, but I don't have beef with you guys just because we make jokes about that. Patrick Bet David, I believe, is Iranian. Never had beef with him for being Iranian or father Iranian or whatever Iranian heritage he has, lineage. So I don't have beef with y'all, but the country pops off beef. And now who knows who's in danger where? Who knows if there's going to be some type of false flag or real flag or some type of event. We already had the thing in Texas that was allegedly tied to some lunatic or CIA op, who knows, but tied to somebody who was connected to feeling like there was a cause that they had to pop off for in front of a bar. Why am I involved with this? How does this stop? You can't just say, after the 12-day war, we're out of ammunition or whatever. Can we put a pause to this? This time they might say, no, we're good. You're spending a lot of money. Why don't we just finish this? Then obviously it goes straight to nukes. If say hypothetically we ran out of Israel, US ran out of interceptors, it would have to go to nukes at that point. Who knows what they have? This is all speculation, not to scare anybody, but just in the hypothetical situation, what happens if you're out of interceptors? You're done. And they still have these cheap drones. Even if they don't have a whole thousands of them, they can manufacture them quicker and they might still have a few whatever left, and you can't stop them. And they could just pepper spray wherever. Well, we know Israel has nukes. We know the US has nukes. You think China's going to let Israel nuke Iran? You think Russia's going to just stand by and say, well, why? Russia might say, wait a second, how about we don't do nukes? Because we have nukes of our own. Let's put those down. You don't know where this goes. Donald Trump, so for you maggots who are still supporting Donald Trump, he has no control over this at this point. Unless it's all choreographed, which is possible, but if it's not, he has no control over this. I actually looked up, what would be an observable warning or indicator of nuclear weapons? And it says a nuclear detonation has clear physical signatures at the moment it occurs, and those are detected quickly by multiple technical systems. The harder question involves advance warning before detonation, because most pre-detonation indicators come from observing delivery platforms and command activity, and those indicators are ambiguous at best. Ballistic missile launches provide the most consistent and earliest observable warning before a potential nuclear detonation. Space-based infrared missile warning systems detect the heat from booster plumes and often provide the first indication of launch, which supports near real-time warning messages and follow-on queuing to radars. That's the obvious place where this, at some point, Israel's like, well, you all know we have some nukes. You know, U.S. has nukes. At some point, it's like, okay, stop. And that it gets to that point at some point. If somebody has a gun in a fight and they're getting their ass kicked, there's always the threat of them trying to pull it out. It's not even like Iran's getting their ass kicked. So there would be warnings, but it doesn't look like you would get a lot of warnings ahead of time. It seems like it'd be focused on space-based infrared, so China would probably have that and feed it to Iran. And if that happened, then if that happened, then why wouldn't Russia and China put their nukes on ready? Even if they didn't want to threaten the U.S., they don't know where the nuke's going. How's Donald Trump going? How's that great second term of Donald Trump so far?
The other thing you will notice is these mountains. These mountains is what we call Iran. All right, this is Iran. This is GCC. Okay,
wait, what is this? So Voodoo Illusion says not really World War III and no big players really involved, just another Middle Eastern war. What do you mean no big players involved? He's talking about how China gets 40% of their oil through the Strait. Russia is involved in helping Iran. Iran helps Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. This is the same type of proxy shit that we were dealing with Russia and Ukraine. And I thought your boy, I don't know if it's you, Voodoo, but I'm talking to people who still support Trump. I thought your boy was going to stop the Russia-Ukraine war. Not only that, he's escalating it to bring Iran and Russia together against the U.S. Russia's providing intel. China's providing intel allegedly to help Iran. Why wouldn't they? I don't know how far they're going to go, but what do you mean no big players are involved? Is it World War III right now? Okay, you can say it's not right now. But my point is, you don't know what it's going to become tomorrow.
It's not a fair matchup, right? Because these are mountains. And what can you do in mountains? Well, you can hide rocket bases. You can hide drone bases. You can hide missiles. And that's the entire Iranian offensive strategy, all right? From here, they can hide missiles and drones from which to attack the GCC. And what are they attacking? They're attacking three things, right? They're attacking American military bases. American military bases. That's number one. Okay? Is it possible for the Americans to defend against these attacks? The answer is no. It's not. It's the silliest thing in the world. You have all these bases in the Middle East, but you cannot defend them against the Iranians. That's kind of strange.
It's not. It's by design to me, because Congress, they're going to already go to Congress and say we need more money. They already increased the budget under Trump. I believe they went to, is it 1.5 now? I'll look that up. I believe it went to 1.5 trillion now if you go all in. And they're just going to go, it'd be like me. I love Apple devices. So it'd be like me getting tired of an old MacBook from 2013 or something like that. And I put it in the middle of the road and a car drives over it. And I'm like, oh, well, I got to buy a new one. They're going to use our taxpayer dollars, devalue our money to just rebuild.
Okay, but that's number one. Number two is oil and energy. How hard is it to blow up an oil field with a drone? Not hard at all. Can you defend these oil fields? No, you cannot. All right? Number three, and this is most important, is water. Okay? You guys don't know this, but The GCC has little access to fresh water. So the only way that it can produce water is what we call desalination plants, okay? These factories that take salt water and then through electrical...
Which why don't we have here? Digress. We've talked about that going back years. Like, why don't we have, maybe we have some, but we don't have a lot.
Chemical process, turn it into fresh water for the population to use. 60% of the water supply in the GCC comes from desalination plants, okay? 60%. Is it hard to blow up a desalination plant using a drone? The answer is, it's very easy. You understand? Okay? So you have this absurd situation where Iran is a mountain fortress where it can hide its offensive capacity, and the GCC, it's just this desert, this flat desert, and it is exposed to attack, and there's nothing it can do about it. Okay? So at any point in this war, the Iranians can choose to just destroy the entire GCC, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it.
I want you to be honest, Voodoo Illusion. Are you a Trump supporter right now? I just want to know. I just want to have that context. Voodoo Illusion replies, the big players are not fighting each other. It's intel sharing, like Europe and the United States helping Ukraine. So if it's through proxy, so you admit that it is through proxy, the US helping Ukraine as a proxy against Russia, which cost Russia a lot of bodies. So now the US gets into a direct conflict with Iran, and through proxy, Russia helps Iran because Iran is the one helping Russia as well in the Ukraine war. How long is it before I say, fuck the middleman, we just need to have beef? And who has control over that? That's the problem. That's the problem I have. I'm going through proxy to help this dude fight. At some point, I'm just going to be like, get the hell out the way. Me and you have beef. You can't have one without, you can't say, well, it's okay, we're in a proxy war. It's okay, it's just a proxy war. Well, what's to stop the proxy war from becoming a direct one? Voodoo Illusion says it's irrelevant. I'm not American. Trump is doing what needs to be done, same as Russia doing what needs to be done. Yeah, well, that's, I know you're not American, but that represents the state of, I mean, that's actually a more sane take than most of the maggots. So that's why we are where we are. So I tell my wife very often, we are where we deserve to be.
Okay.
And all of that without getting permission from the American people.
But Iran also has a weakness, okay? And this is fundamental. So Iran also has a water problem, okay? So for the longest time, they suffered a drought issue, okay? Just climate change. And so what the plan of the Israelis and Americans is destroy the water supply of the Iranians. Because the fortress, it is a mountain fortress, but it can also be a mountain prison as well, where people are trapped inside with no access to water. Okay, so what we're going to see right now, we're already seeing attacks on civilian infrastructure, hospitals. In the future, you'll see attacks on water supply, on dams, on reservoirs.
Because the goal of America is not to use nukes in Israel. They want to do this without having to use nukes. But there's no guarantee that it won't come to that. That's why you have the nukes. You don't think another nuke's going to be dropped at some point?
On power plants. The point, the idea is to make Iran so inhabitable that the people will have to rebel against the people, or there'll be a refugee crisis in Iran. Okay? So
It's exactly like sanctions. They're basically sanctioning, or they will. I don't think they have yet. They're trying to sanction Iran by taking out certain pieces of infrastructure, and then people will rise up. If people can't eat, if they can't drink, then you have nothing to lose.
As you can see from this map, this war, it is the end of the world. Okay? Both sides have the potential to destroy each other. It's really a question of,
Bruh, I don't care about, so this is Voodoo Illusion, and no beef with him. He's being very respectful. But I am so frustrated with people who tell me, are you going to ignore how the Iran, I should just call it Iran now. The Iran Muslims have been treating their own people. I don't care. Ask me how much I care about Iran and how good they are to their own people. Ask me if I care. I don't care. What does it have to do with me? I do not care. The Iranian government could off their own people, and I literally wouldn't lose a moment of sleep. Why would I care? I'm trying to think of something that I couldn't care less about more. I think the only thing I care less about than how the Iranian people are being treated by Iran is probably these videos of this little black dude. I guess he's a boxer getting slapped every 2 seconds by somebody. I don't even know his name. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? This video came out with this big bodybuilder. I think his name's Larry or something like that. They're so weird. And this guy is a little boxer type dude or something like that. And every video, this bitch slapped him the other video. The big weightlifter slapped him the other video. Then this white dude elbowed him in the face. I don't know what's going on. That's the only thing I care less about than the treatment of Iranian people. None. No care at all.
how far do they want to go? All right? We can also say this is almost a game of chicken. Okay? We can blow each other up. How far do you want to go?
No, you're doing well, Voodoo. I'm not trying to clown your English. You're more articulate than maybe me. But we can still discuss the points, and I appreciate your opinions. I just respectfully disagree. I'm not sold. Somebody sell me on why I should care about Iranians. Why should I care about the Iranian women and the Iranian? I don't want to make sure this is apathetic. I don't want anybody to die. I'm not rooting for anybody to die, or I don't want to be involved at all. But, so from an apathetic standpoint, why should I care about Iranians? Explain it to me. I got my own people. I got my own family. I got my own people. I got my own kids to care about. My country doesn't even care about that. My country doesn't care about my digital freedom. Why the hell would I care about an Iranian? For what? I don't care about anybody from Ghana, Iran, Israel, none of them. Don't care. I don't care. The Christians there, don't care. I got my own country. What about the Christians here? I care more about the Christians here being Zionist pigs more than whatever's happening to the poor treatment of Christians. They got to fight for their own country. They aren't even presenting an olive branch to me for why I should care. They aren't even saying, well, we can provide. I know you've got beef in America. You got problems here. I don't know what they could offer. Yeah, if you can offer something politically, then maybe I might care, like as an ally. What are you offering me? Nothing. I even said the Israelis could offer something. The Israelis could say, you know what? We won't surveil you. I'll show you proof we're not going to surveil you. We own all the tech. We own all the VPNs. Just don't call us out. We'll help you, protect you with your First Amendment rights. We can be allies. I'm open to that. I've always been open to that. I know it's hypothetical. I'm a nobody, but I'm just in a hypothetical situation. Yeah, I could be allies. You help me, I help you. This is a bitch relationship. It's you don't talk shit about us and we slap the shit out of you every day. Fuck you. No, I'm not down with that. You're not giving me anything. What do the Iranians have to offer me? Go on somewhere. I don't care. I don't care how hot your half Jew looking Persian Iranian women are. They're not feeding me grapes. Not that I'm asking, I'm married. But I'm just saying there's not, what are you offering me? This is so ridiculous how Americans are like, I got to care about the Ethiopians. I got to care about the everybody in Syria. I have to care about Israelis. I have to care about the Mexicans. I have to care about the Canadians. Why? Why do I have to care about them? I do not. I absolutely do not have to care about you. I don't even care about the blacks in the inner city. What do they have to offer me? They don't care about me. I don't care about them. That's life. That's politics. Quid pro quo. We can work out a deal. I'm happy to. That's why Nick Fuentes and Jimmy Dore having whatever beef. If you know the channel, I'm a long time, going back to 2020 when I started streaming, fan of Jimmy Dore. Always been, still am. And Jimmy and Nick have what they're supposed to collab, and there's beef and tension or whatever it is. And I'm like, there can be a quid pro quo. Why do we have to have beef? I'm tired of this. That's why I fell out with Sabby Sabs. Not that she knows me, but whatever. She blocked me, and Anna Kasparian. And what I challenged them, and Fiorella Isabel hasn't blocked me. She's respectful. I'm a big fan of all of them. But they always put up this brick wall to make an excuse as to why we have to have beef. Just because we disagree on blacks and race and all that, why do we have to have beef? They're legit takes here. This isn't like some low IQ race discussion. We have legitimate disagreements. My point is, why can't we still do some type of quid pro quo or some type of agreement where it's like, we don't agree on race, but here's where we agree. Nick's still throwing out olive branches. They don't throw out olive branches. They never do. They never have. The left. So I don't care if you're left. I don't care if you're Iran. I don't care if you're Israel. I don't care if you're Jew. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're an Indian. I don't care if you're a Jeet who worked on erecting a 90-foot tall monkey god statue in Sugar Land, Texas. We can work together if we do some type of agreement. Why does it always have to be, I have to care about you and you don't give a shit about anything I care about? I'm tired of this. No, if you want to come to the table with something, let's talk about it. Heisenberg was like, nigga, all this time I thought you were a white. I'm white. I'm socially white. It's race realism, genetically black, perfectly fine, not ashamed of my heritage, through Jamaica, through Africa, obviously. But when you race is a social construct to them, Heinsberg. Heinsberg's like, unfollowed. I thought you were a white. You know what? In the future, actually, all this stuff against transgenderism and all that, to be honest with you, once the AI tech is good enough to be not as AI slop as it is now, you see, I have a video where it's a white, she actually looks Israeli, to be honest with you, but it's a white woman or Middle Eastern or something. I did a short on YouTube using an avatar. These avatars are all going to be basically women. A lot of these there's people following these avatars that are basically women. Why? It's just more appealing. Men like women. It's that simple. So I did a video with, this is 100% AI. And so Heinsberg or whatever your name is, I mean, you might have a point. You might actually have a point.
These files in a lot more detail than most. What is your assessment of that?
It's not a simple question. It doesn't have a simple answer. So I think the public hears all of this information. And it's like, okay, I kind of think we get it. What is confusing is that, did he work for Mossad? That part is confusing, because if you think of Mossad as or any spy service as a spy service, like, what is it in service of? These spy services are in service.
So this is in regards to Epstein, but you're going to see the AI model come in a second. I'll just fast forward it.
Like filling out a W-9 and sending it into Mossad.
The money, Israel. The planes, Israel. The father, Israel. The passport, Israel. The software, Israel. The prime minister hiding his face, Israel. It really is one word. And every time you hear someone say it's complex or there's a gray zone,
It's not a simple question. It doesn't have a simple answer. He was working for them. It's more like, that Mossad was working for Epstein, through, semi-official channels. He's the guy that's operating in the gray zone. And
you know what they're doing. They're shielding the sun. They're shielding the guilty. Ryan Grimm wants you confused, but the reality is not complex. The reality is quite simple. We are occupied. And if the conservative movement is run by people terrified to name the country that compromised their leaders, do you actually have a country left to conserve? I think we all know the answer to that. Keep your eyes open. Index read.
Yeah, that's what, and for the prompt on that, Heinsberg, I literally put in something to the effect of mid-range brunette. I forgot the exact prompt to create, that's a completely AI woman. And yeah, it's slopped a lot because of the audio, which is purposely held back by them. They have audio that you can't tell which is human or not. They've had that for 2 years now. They're holding it back because you could do all kinds of crazy shit with that. But once it is out, you're not going to see me. Don't worry. You won't see me anymore. You're going to see a bunch of mid women, because that seems to be what goes viral now, is the mid-range. You know, the woman where you're like, oh, she's kind of attractive, but she's not. There's a little. That's, for whatever reason, that's the sweet spot. And you're going to see a lot more of that from me. You're going to see a lot of mid women with that just happen to agree with my takes in the future. So don't worry about me being a nig. You won't see my face. Why would I put my face up here and risk everything? The Jews are out here searching names. Have you heard that? The Jews are out here searching people's real names from Twitter, from X, in Israel, allegedly. And when your name comes up in that search where it says search from Israel, shit tends to happen in your name. So they can still follow you, but why not go behind the avatar if you can't tell the difference? We're not there yet, but it's getting there. So don't worry about that.
And the problem is this. The problem is that the Iranians are Shia, which believes in martyrdom. And you've killed the religious leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. So they're willing to go very, very far. The GCC countries are Muslim, but they're materialistic. They love money. And also, most of the population are expatriates, foreigners. 90% of Dubai are foreigners. Guess what's going to happen if they suffer? They're going to run away. Okay? So this is not a fair matchup. The big question that people have is, first of all, are the Americans going to use ground troops? Because the only way that you can defeat Iran is by using ground troops, okay? That's a big question we will look at over the next few weeks. Will America send its army, 500,000, 2 million soldiers to topple the government? Okay, that's question number one. Question number two, nuclear weapons.
Uh-oh.
If you're losing a war, would you choose to use nuclear weapons? Okay, that's another big question that we have, okay? Another big question that we have is who gets involved? Because this situation is so dire that Europe, okay, specifically Germany, France, and Britain are talking about entering this war. And guess what? If that happens, it is possible that Russia and China will also enter this war on the side of the Iranians. This is World War III, okay? Because of the importance of the...
I argue maybe it didn't start, but it goes back at least to Russia, Ukraine.
Should have moved because of the importance...
All of this is a continuation of Russia, Ukraine.
Of the Middle East. Everyone has to get involved at some point.
So how do you feel about Trump? How do you feel about Trump? Came in talking about how he would stop the Middle East war, lied about stopping it, let Israel basically bulldoze the whole Gaza Strip, which is very small. Bulldoze, it was very hard for them to do that. It's a very small area. And they just bulldoze it. And then Trump, they still have to do like a little bit of cleanup. So Trump does this fake peace thing. They still do the bulldozing, more targeted killing of civilians and trying to wipe out the mines. It's still a dangerous area. He also said, we're going to stop the Russia-Ukraine. I'm tired of people dying. And that thing has just ramped up even worse. And then now we have this. So now we have more evidence that Trump, and I don't care if it's, Trump took a bullet to his head. So this all could be related to that. Who knows what somebody said to Trump and said, Trump, this is where you work for us now. Yeah, that's pretty serious for a president to have an assassination attempt. And we really don't know what the hell happened there. It wasn't Iran. I'm not believing the Iran stuff. It's more realistic that somebody got to Trump and said, it's your family next or this. We could have a president directly under duress. Who cares what the reason is? The fact is, he was a Trojan horse. He came in one way, flipped the script, and now is escalating things. So whatever the reason is, he's got to go. Because this whole thing was a lie. And now we're closer to destruction. Way worse than even Biden. But Biden brought us here too.
And we're going to use game theory to really try to understand what's happening on the ground and where this could lead us. Okay? All right. You guys understand? All right. All right. Let's continue. Okay, so again.
So we do have a Donald Trump rah-rah account here. Donald Trump, America's hero. And with the Donald Trump rah-rah accounts, you notice that they're less substantive than they used to be. It's kind of sad to watch.
There are American bases all over the Middle East. And originally, these bases were established.
Wait, you guys keep taking me off the... China doesn't... Laugh Skull, so maybe... Laugh Skull. And I was going to say maybe you shouldn't trust somebody with the name Laugh Skull, but it's just a name, so I'm not going to diss you off the name. But you said China doesn't have the capability to stand up to the USA? What the actual hell are you talking about? That's what's going on, y'all.
To protect them from basically their own people, okay? These are monarchies that were imposed on these nations by the Anglo-American Empire, the British first, and then the Americans came to support these monarchies. And so they provide defense. But then you're like, wait
After he finishes this arc, I'm going to be out, so I appreciate the chat, everybody.
a minute here. I mean, didn't we just say that these American bases can actually defend these people, that they're exposed? And the answer is yes, that's true. But remember, like the American military was built during the Cold War. Okay? And the Cold War was a war between the Soviet Union and America. And so the Cold War was defined as something called MAD, mutually assured destruction, because both had nuclear weapons, okay? So they didn't really go to war against each other. And so in other words, these bases aren't really meant to defend these nations from other enemies. They're really meant to impose American authority in the Middle East, okay? And it's the idea of this. It's the idea that empire, it is really a...
And when you say the Middle East, it's obviously all about Israel. It's not about anything else.
Image. It is a hallucination. It's just an idea. Empire is it's an aura of invincibility and invisibility, okay? If you fear it, then you obey it. But it's not really designed to fight a war, okay? And so that's why we have this absurd situation. And because there are so many bases in the GCC, that gives the Iranians the perfect pretext to attack them in order to destroy the GCC economy, which will destroy the American empire, right? All right, so this is how the war is shipping out, okay? So the red is the Israelis and the Americans. The yellow are the Iranians. And as you can see, the Iranians are attacking everywhere, primarily Israel, okay? But also, as you can see, a lot of focus on Bahrain and Qatar. And again, the intention is to destabilize the economy, and the government. Okay, it's to try to get as much.
And that will put pressure on the U.S. And I'm not ready to say it for sure yet, but I do want to look to get evidence of the concern that because we don't have enough manufacturing and we're not near the robots yet, if you let the economy crash in a way and people lose their jobs, then you kind of revert back to manufacturing as the core. How do you feed your family? And we just saw that there was an announcement that these defense contractors in America are going to ramp up production. How are they going to ramp up production? Who's going to do that? How are they going to quadruple or whatever the production is? Let me look that. I'm going to continue this so I can look that up to have that discussion.
Instability as possible. All right? Okay, and as you can see, the Americans and Israelis are focused on Tehran. And so the Americans and the Israelis use something we call shock and awe. And the very idea of shock and awe is you decapitate the enemy. You cut off the head, the body will fall down, okay? The problem, though, is, again, the Iranians see this as a religious war. And so the Iranians have announced total war. Okay? And so what this means is that right now, command and control in Iran is decentralized. There's no one person telling everyone what to do. Every region has its own orders, has its own strategy. And so if you knock out Tehran, everyone else keeps on going. So if you take off the head, it doesn't change anything. Okay? But unfortunately, the Israelis and the Americans use this as a military doctrine.
Just to confirm, what he's showing is where's the concentration of strikes. Israel and Tehran are the concentrated areas, but there's pepper spraying close to Iran there.
Military doctrine just means how you design your military for what purpose. And so even though the Americans seem like an invincible army, they are not equipped to fight a 21st century war against drones, against desalination, against religious fanatics. Okay, they're just not.
You have to separate, Laugh Skull, you have to separate China does not want to fight. They are very high civilization IQ, chess IQ country that I have over my time streaming have grown to respect, unfortunately, much more than our own government. Our American culture is brute force, stupidity, stupid White House memes about war, using football and movies. That's just straight ass hattery. That's dumbassery. China doesn't do dumb shit like that. They're too sophisticated, they're too smart. They don't get involved in war unless they have the advantage. You got to read The Art of War. You never, unless you know. So I talked about I don't want to get into conflict with random dudes on the street or women or anything because you don't know what they have. Part of the art of war is knowing what they have. Do they know karate? How strong are they? What is your probability of winning? Do they have weapons? What's the terrain? Do I have backup? All that math, which is now being done by algorithms. China does that math. And they're not going to get involved unless the probability is high enough and they don't have an alternative. So China's not getting involved in Venezuela. Why? They don't need to stretch themselves out to do that. They spend their money on infrastructure. That's where they that's where they devalue their currency is in infrastructure. Have you seen what they build? And the shit we have here? That's where they put the money. Their military is strong. They just don't waste. They keep it up. But you see what we're doing here, our bases, we're spending billions basically per day. They're not even putting the right numbers in the count. I was looking at the count of the spending of the war. They're not counting the damage on the bases. They're not even telling you what's all in the total of the count. They don't waste money like that. It's stupid. Unless they have to. So don't mistake that for them being weak. That is really, that is one of the fundamental rules you're breaking of the art of war. Never underestimate your opponent. Never underestimate your opponent. China, if it was straight up China versus US, are you crazy? China has more people. China wins that every day of the week. The only thing that you would look at is the nukes, and nobody wins either way. So please don't do that. I don't know what your experience is in reading and looking at this stuff. This is not good. Don't do that. We got to do more research. To have that take doesn't make any sense.
All right. But unfortunately, because of military doctrine, they're going to keep on attacking Tehran. Now, the great irony of all this is that the Iranians who will be most supportive of regime change, are actually in the cities because they are educated, they're progressive. The people who are most fundamentally against you, will fight you to the death, are religious fanatics, the Shia militants living in the rural areas. Okay? So this is a really silly thing where you are actually destroying those who will most likely support you, and you're leaving alone those who are most likely to commit jihad against you.
Wait, this is the first time I've not disagreed because he knows more than I do, but I'm curious. If you want the progressives to rally, you would attack the progressives. To rally, to change the regime, to stop the attacks. So, I mean, you don't want to, these attacks are targeted. So you don't want to wipe out the progressives because you need them. But that's where the part where he's talking about in the outskirts, this is where the Kurds come in. On the west of Iran, that's where the Kurds come in through Iraq. That's why Iraq was so big in the Iraq war. They needed to have that as a friendly territory. And the Kurds don't even mess with the U.S. like that because we left them stranded in Syria. So not as many of the Kurds even mess with the U.S. like that. But that's where the Kurds would come in from the west. So you don't need to really do as much there. You want to do here to put pressure. I don't know. That's one place where I might ask him questions.
All right. Any questions so far, guys?
Yeah, it's funny.
Very clear.
Yeah, I do have a question.
So another idea that I want you guys to understand is the idea of asymmetry. Asymmetry. All right, so what is asymmetry?
That's where the manufacturing is coming on. Speaking of drones, here we go. He's going right into it. You might have watched this already, Laugh. I've seen this clip, but Laugh, Skull, great comment, says drones are a definite weakness of ours. It's a horrific weakness. And he's about to break it down right here. So I'll hang on a little bit longer. Man, this video is enjoyable. 26 minutes. I know I'm talking over it, but so enjoyable.
Asymmetry means that the two sides are choosing to fight different wars using different techniques because one is much stronger than the other, okay? America is a great empire. It has unlimited resources. It has the USD. It controls the world, right? Iran is a country that has been under economic sanctions for the past 45 years. It's poor. Its technology is very limited, okay? But as we learn in this class, actually, those nations that are poor actually have more energy. They're more open, and they're more cohesive. All right, so let me give an example. This is what we call the Shahad drones. Shahad drones. Each of these drones costs $50,000 at most, okay? At most. It can go as cheap as $35,000 US. But one of them is $50,000. As you can see, you can fit a lot of these drones to a truck that can go anywhere in Iran, and they can hide anywhere. All right?
And Iranians don't design stuff like this. They obviously steal it. They can manufacture, but they're not the Germans. And that's where you could argue the design for these little drones came from, was from Germany.
So the thing to understand is, first of all, these drones are cheap. They're easy to make. They make about 500 a day. Okay? And estimates are about there's 80,000 right now that the Iranians have.
This is where it comes down to the manufacturing power. So you want to outsource all manufacturing in America? We do some bombs here. Obviously, I don't want to be a part of that. But if you just want to talk about strategy, you have to manufacture these things yourselves. You can't determine on that. You can't depend on anybody else. And you have to manufacture them faster at scale, economies of scale, faster and cheaper than your enemy. Otherwise, you have a problem.
So they can go on for a long, long time. Okay, and one of these drones, again, can knock out a desalination plant, it can knock out an oil field, it can knock out a hotel, it can do a lot of damage. Okay? And it's easily transportable. You can hide it anywhere. You can use it from anywhere, okay? And that's what the Iranians are using as an offensive weapon. And how do the Americans defend against this? They use something called a FAD, right? Right, guys? This is what they use.
Ugh,
FAD.
expensive.
FAD stands for Thermal High Altitude Air Defense. And they also have like Patriot systems. There's a lot, okay? The thing that you need to know about the system is it's really expensive. This missile, guys, costs $1 million.
My goodness.
$1 million.
Woo!
So there's this $50,000 drone coming your way, and you throw a $1 million missile at it, okay? And often these missiles miss, so you have to throw 2 or 3 missiles at it, okay? So
That's 20x, guys.
you're spending $2 to $3 million on each $50,000 that the Iranians spend.
That's 20x 1 to 1. You multiply it 2 to 3, 40 to 60x. That's not sustainable.
That's kind of silly. Second thing you'll notice is that this thing is really big and really slow.
Jeez.
And therefore, you can't really move it around. Therefore, it's pretty easy for the Iranians to spot where this is and attack it.
That's why you see these goofy ass shorts from the White House and Department of War on Twitter and X. That goofy shit about, oh, it's war, it's like a football game, all that MAGA goy slop bullshit is to cover up this. To cover up the realities of war is that you are being financially raped. To what reward? What is the reward?
And then when these things blow up, that's a lot of money, guys. Okay? Then you're like,
That doesn't even count the time and effort to manufacture new ones.
what? But this makes no sense. You know the Iranians have drones. They've had drones for like 10 years. You've also seen drones used in the Russia-Ukraine war to devastating effect. Why don't the Americans know this? Why did they prepare? Okay, and again, it has to do with military.
There's nothing that I know or he knows that they don't know. We have to work on that assumption. This is not incompetent. So what is it? I'm going to go to that. That will be my takeaway is I have the stuff on the manufacturing part of it. Who knows if this is by design to basically AI is taking over customer service, computer jobs. So what are men going to do? Think about that. What are men going to do? And what do they need men to do right now? Because the robots aren't there yet. You can't do a factory of robots to make these things yet. So it's still going to have to be manpower. Who's going to do it? You and I are going to do it. Your kids are going to do it. Spoiler alert.
Doctrine. Because military doctrine determines how you fight a war. It determines on your bureaucracy, and it determines how you spend your resources, okay? And unfortunately, the Americans are used to fighting something called the Cold War. Right? And the Cold War, because you can actually fight the war. You can actually use kill each other because then people use nuclear weapons. The Cold War was about flexing.
We haven't evolved. And maybe this war with Iran is the Department of War saying, why would we take the risk to help Israel and all that? Well, it will use up a lot of this stuff, force us to manufacture more. The public will have to get behind that. And we will transition out of the Cold War into this AI war where we've got to manufacture. You use AI, Grok, and Anthropic, and Palantir OS, and all the different AI companies. And then you go on.
Flexing. Okay? You see how big and powerful I am? Me! Okay? That's all it was. These weapon systems are designed to scare the crap out of you. They are designed to impress you. And as a result, they cost a lot of money, and they really don't do anything, all right? So that's the entire American military. It costs a lot, and it doesn't really do anything. And it's not resilient. It's not innovative. It's not open. All right? Also, the other thing I have to say this, okay, is if you look at the American military, it's corrupt. So this is really about corruption. So the Americans don't really care about winning a war. What they care about is spending as much money as possible because then they get a cut. It doesn't make sense. Right? And that's why the Americans are in the situation as they are. All right, let's continue. All right. So something that people don't really talk about, but you need to understand, it's the water issue in the GCC, in the Middle East, in Iran. All right. So this is a map of the world. And if you are light blue, Brazil, Canada, you have nothing to worry about because you have a lot of water, a lot of fresh water, very little population. All right? So 100% just means 100% water stress just means that you drink as much water as the environment produces. Okay? So you want to be below 100% to be sustainable. Ideally, you want to be at 10%. Okay? If it goes above 100%, it means that you are drinking more water, using more water than the environment actually produces. Okay, so you're putting stress on the environment. So 20% is really bad, right? Because you're using twice as much water as the environment produces. Guess what, guys? Look at the Middle East, okay? Egypt. 6,420%. Saudi Arabia, 883%. All right? Bahrain, almost 4,000%. Dubai, 17,000%. All right? So water is a huge issue. Again, it doesn't matter if Iran kills American soldiers, destroys American military. It doesn't have to do that. All it has to do is destroy the desalination plants. And then the GCC is destroyed, okay? But it's also true that Iran has water issues. 72% is pretty bad, okay? So even though the Iranians could destroy the GCC much faster than the Americans could destroy Iran, Iran is still in trouble, okay? So let me give you an example of this. This is like, so this is another map that shows you the issue of water scarcity, okay? And it's just basically the Middle East, okay? Their biggest issue in the future.
That's the funny thing about marriage. My wife called. I forgot my phone just connects to the Bluetooth down here. So you're going to hear a conversation with me and my wife. Here's the important thing my wife wanted to call me about. She's at the store and they've got sparkling ice on sale. What flavors do the kids want? That's so cute. I appreciate her. I'm going to end with this. The production. This is a theory, so it is a conspiracy theory, whatever. But this is going to be my take is, I don't know if this is the purpose of it or not, but what it could lead to is turning Americans into what are Americans going to do as AI takes over? My wife called a customer service on HSA, trying to transfer over funds from an HSA. The customer service agent doesn't know what the hell is going on. And that happens because they just don't have the data. There's so many things going on. They're looking at the system. At this point, humans are in the way. If you had given AI all the data about what happens to people's accounts, the AI would have been able to answer more accurately, quicker, even with more empathy, to be honest with you. You can program AI to answer someone in a manner that will resonate and customize to where they are mentally at that time. So you're done. The whole customer service industry, you're done. Within a year or two, you're completely done, other than a couple people monitoring it. What are you going to do for work? What are you going to do? You're not going to be even dropping fries. You're not even going to be doing Uber. We talked about Tesla and self-driving cars. I'm wondering, what are we going to do? There's not going to be any benevolent push to say, you all get universal basic income and healthcare. How does that even work? That doesn't look like where we're going. So I might have adapted my take as far as the rose-colored glasses on that front. What it comes down to is manufacturing. And eventually the robots are going to take over that as well, but not right now. So what's happening? I think we're seeing the need to build out drones and weapons quicker and faster. And right now, the pressure point right now that's forcing us to consider nukes is the ugly math that you just saw Professor Zhang talk about from Predictive History. They're attacking with cheap methods. The defense is amazing technology, but it's too expensive. AP reported concern around inventories of Patriot and THAAD interceptors. Not even just that they're too expensive, we don't even have enough of them. And Reuters reported demand for air defense systems such as the PAC-3 have surged, while recent operations also use low-cost one-way attack drones. U.S. is ramping defense production right now, but it is still a targeted rearmament push rather than a full conversion to what I'm talking about, civilian economy, actually going retro to World War II. That's what it was. People were pumping out the weapons here at home in the States. Federal national defense spending was 3.7% of the GDP in 2025. Economists still describe the current defense burden as relatively low by historical standards. How are they going to do this? The first level is guaranteed demand. Get into a war with Iran, lower the stockpile even more. We've given a lot to Israel and Ukraine. Now you go to the public and say, we're out. We're in danger now. Do you want us to use a nuke? The Pentagon, Department of War, their strategy is they want bigger and longer contracts, multi-year procurement, economic order, quantity authority, guaranteed purchase orders, and more stable funding so these defense contractors will actually risk building new capacity. They say continuing resolutions to do the opposite by limiting new starts and production is not the way to go. So the first level is you've got guaranteed demand. They created the demand. The second lever is going to be forcing more reinvestment by the big hitters. Reuters reported that 5 major U.S. defense firms are projected to spend about $10 billion in CapEx in 2026, up nearly 38% from 2025. With more money moving toward supply chain resilience, domestic manufacturing, workforce expansion, and internal investment. Reuters also reported the White House has been pressing contractors to put production ahead of shareholder payouts. They brought them in the White House to break it down for them. So you've got the AI companies, they're on lock. They're part of the government. You can't mess with them. They can do whatever they want. You have no digital rights when dealing with them. Remember, Trump said the opposite when he was running. And now the same things with the defense contractors. And then the data centers are national defense, already did that executive order. They're going to make legislation on that, no doubt. The third lever is physical plant construction and modernization. The Army's fiscal year 2026 ammunition account explicitly funds expansion of public and private plants, ammunition facilities, and new machine tools. The Army's organic industrial base modernization plan covers more than $18 billion over 15 years across 23 depots, arsenals, and ammunition plants. Recap. First lever is the demand. That's the war, using up the supply. Second lever is more reinforcement. Basically, they're a part of the government. Third lever, and to me, if you're a part of the government, everything you do should be public. Everything, literally, their whole books, everything. No, it's a lot of it's hidden behind national security. Third lever is physical plant construction and modernization. Where's the money go? Fourth lever is new high output facilities. The new Camden facility is designed to produce 50,000 completed 155 millimeter projectiles per month when fully operational. The Army has a broader goal of 100,000 shots per month by fiscal 2026. They're already doing this. You just have to look at it. And more plants. That's not the only thing. The plants, the McAllister Army ammunition plant's new multi-purpose load facility is reported to raise capacity for select munitions by 400%. The Iowa Future Artillery Complex got a $635 million contract and is being built around robotics, automation, and lean manufacturing, flexible surge capacity. Fifth lever is fixing supplier bottlenecks. DoD, Department of War, says DPA Title III money is being used for weak points shared across many weapons, including precision ball bearings, solid rocket motors, and forging equipment for artillery shells. Northrop says its own expansion plan includes new mixed cast capacity, higher automated digital missile factory, double large solid rocket motor production in some areas, triple propellant casting capability in Utah. Sixth level is where I was leading to, is the workforce buildup. The Army says its organic industrial base has more than 16,000 employees across 23 sites and is building new training, reskilling, VR training, and career mapping programs to support the modernized plants. For the submarine industrial base, the Department of War says fiscal 2026 mandatory funding includes $615 million for wage enhancement and almost $2 billion for shipyard productivity investments. Shipyard expansion. They say shipyard infrastructure optimization programs already completed more than 50 facilities projects worth $1.5 billion. More public money versus private credit. The defense budget briefing includes an additional $1.3 billion for industrial base supply chain improvements, $2.5 billion for missile and munition production and expansion. Why my concern makes sense. There is a real retro element underneath all of this. The Army says much of its munitions infrastructure was built during World War II, and officials say many plants are still operating on very old production architecture. They want to upgrade all that. This is a great excuse to do it. ChatGPT, which has, I'm using 5.4 thinking, which is very good, actually. Your broader point is the key one. Cheap Iranian attack methods create pressure for expansion beyond a few premium missile lines. My inference is that if cheap volume attacks keep driving the fight, the build-out spreads from high-end interceptors to lower-cost counter-drone systems, radar energetics, shell fillings, rocket motors, and ship repair. AP has already reported a push towards more cost-effective anti-drone defenses. What would tell you this is becoming a broader war economy? A sustained rise in defense spending as a share of GDP well above the current 3.7, repeated supplemental funding bills that keep backfilling stockpiles, paying for faster production. Reuters reported this week that the Pentagon may seek around $50 billion, which is a drop in the bucket, for supplemental funding tied to Middle East operations. They're going to gradually do it not to scare people. Broader federal control over materials, supplier finance, and factory scheduling across civilian industry. The current strategy already talks about stable demand signals, meaning we're going to be at war for a while. Why do you think Trump says, well, this could be, they're leaking, he hasn't said it outright, but this could be a long war, 100-day war. Why? Get ready. So it justifies, if it's going to be a week long, it doesn't really justify all this buildup, does it? 15 days, he did the exact same thing with COVID. 15 days of slow the spread, and that shit became months, years. The blunt version wrap up, yes, it would start limited expansion that would grow into wider, potentially, expansion, especially if you don't want to use nukes. There's no other way to avoid having to use them. You would want to stall, maybe have some times of peace, like between the 12-day war and Operation Epic Fury. The current ramp is still concentrated in missiles, artillery, rocket motors, shipyards, and the supplier tiers that feed them. The thing that would push it broader is the cost exchange problem. Cheap offense forces either a much larger industrial base, which means workers, plants for expensive interceptors, or a fast move into cheaper defense systems produced at much larger scale. Who's going to do that? The poor, the blacks, the lower middle class. To me, all signs point towards funneling this towards a defense manufacturing economy, because you're not going to be able to work at McDonald's. We don't need you there. We don't need you on the telephones. We don't need you at Nordstrom's. Very few, basically you don't need malls much anymore. Amazon, from the pandemic, Amazon, Walmart built up their $1 trillion basically market cap companies now. So what do you do? Lower middle class, even upper class. I mean, even lawyers are not safe, but typically lower middle class, the poors, you're going to be signing bombs. You're going to be signing up to work in a manufacturing plant until they get the robots ready with robots that they have now, making bombs, making drones, and you're gonna own nothing and like it. And that's where it funnels to me. And you can thank maggots, you can thank Donald Trump, you can thank a lot of people for that dystopian, potentially, allegedly, who knows if that's going to be happening. I could be completely wrong, but that could be the future. Index red.